Moved on to the freeze plugs. I'm doing the freeze plugs before I painted the block, only because I wanted them to stand out here a little bit. Now the GM block that I bought from Speedway, it did come with cam bearings and it did come with steel freeze plugs. I'm not a big fan of steel only because they rust, and GM uses like an epoxy to hold them in. It's not really a Teflon sealant or a silicone sealant. It's something that hardens up. So getting the old ones out was a bit of a challenge. But I bought these, off Summit Racing. These were $20 for the whole set. They included these. They included the quarter-inch MPT plugs and the smaller galley plugs. And as you can see, they're all brass. They're made in USA, which is nice. So for 20 bucks, you get a really nice set of freeze plugs. And again, they're not really meant for freeze. They call them freeze plugs because in theory they're supposed to pop out in case the engine block freezes in cold weather. But really, they were meant to be core plugs for the casting. So they needed a way to plug those up once the casting was made for all the sand cores and get the sand out and so forth. So they call them freeze plugs. But again, if this block freezes up, if any block freezes up, the chances of the plugs popping out before the block cracks are pretty slim. Most people will tell you that. So anyway, they're called freeze plugs, but we're going to put these in, and I just show you what I do. I use a little bit of this Teflon. It's basically a liquid version of Teflon tape, like a plumber would use, thread sealant with Teflon. So it's more or less the same as the tape, but it's much like an RTV. And I'll just wipe a little bit of that on the inside of the block where the freeze plug goes. And that's just to ensure, guard against any possible leaks. And then what I'll do is we'll get a socket, and the socket you need to use is an impact socket. And real quick, these sockets are black for a reason. They are softer metal. They're thicker wall. They're meant to take long, prolonged use with an impact gun. The chrome sockets are not meant for impact use because they are hardened, and they're hardened for the life of the tool. So if you use them with hand tools, they should last you a lifetime just on the wearability of it. These are, again, made for impact. So I use this because I'm going to smack it with a hammer, and you don't want to smack a chrome socket with a hammer because there's a very good chance you could break it because of the metallurgy in it. So you more or less just stick that in there. You're going to get a socket that you want, again, to use the outer rim here to get it on the very almost radius of that plug, because if you try to hit it here, it's going to collapse the plug, and you don't want to do that because then you're going to have a leak. And I'll use a small hammer to drive that in. See, that fits nicely. It's a 27 millimeter socket. You hear how it changes sound, so you can tell it's driving home. And you'll want to get it in so that it doesn't go obviously all the way in, because then you have to pop it back out again. But as you see, it's just below the surface there. And then you can clean that Teflon up if you want to. But that'll keep that leak free. So, and it looks nice when you have just the brass plugs rather than have everything painted over. That's just my preference. Because you want to have the block painted before you kind of do any kind of major work and hang too many parts, or hang any parts for that matter, because obviously you don't want the overspray or the dirt. You want to be able to clean all that out of there. But several of these, I forgot to put the cam plug in when I got on the stand, so as soon as I get off the stand, I'll put the cam plug in, which is the same as a freeze plug. It's just metal, it's steel instead of brass. That holds the cam from the rear. And I think that's about all. But I'll do the rest of these. Just wanted to show you these to you again. Nice set. Brass, made in USA. There's Summit Racing brand, whoever makes them for them. But all the plugs, including the quarter-inch MPT plugs and so forth, all these are made in USA. So that's kind of nice. All right. Well, thanks for watching. Appreciate it. Bye.